Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Let's take a look at PTRA. This is Proterra, and we have a long history on this channel of covering Proterra, and this is one that I had a lot of fun covering in the past, and for a lot of reasons that you could go back and watch those Proterra videos. They changed their leadership team, they changed their guidance, they ran into supply chain issues, they were having margin compression. I knew that this was going to be a very challenging year, and I wanted to warn and probably scared a number of long term investors away. But I really wanted to make sure that you really thought about this if you're thinking about growth in your portfolio, that you waited till about this time frame to come back in, or during these absolutely bottom market times of what we have down here at the 451, which has hit multiple times, time and time again. It has come down here at that 451 number, and now that the Fed has pivoted and we're going to cover the earnings call, you knew I owed you a video on Proterra. I want to talk about this new leadership team. It seems like they're getting settled in. There's a podcast that I listened to that had a few notes in it, but of course we're looking at this as an investor, long-term investor. 515, it's looking to have visited that. I still think that this is a market where you can be greedy in your money. These are just spots where you want to trigger a notification to come back and visit what exactly is happening at a macroeconomic level. I will not be able to come back and refresh every topic on a video that I do, so I just want to make sure that you maintain a very, very hawkish outlook on the market this next year in 2023, because we could have some troubling times coming up, I believe. But hey, who knows? With this Fed pivot, do we get a soft landing like the Fed expects? And you can see a very clear resistance line here too, and why I'm saying that there could be a possible pivot, and why I have two lines in here. And this is the daily chart, and I want you to look at your RSI indicators and just understand that when it comes down here, it's not always a buying opportunity. Look at this point where it came down here and didn't even break the 30 on the RSI. So just be very careful that you use a lot of these things as just an indicator to help educate yourself as to what you want to do long term. But I would not be afraid to put money in the market. I'd be afraid of the exchange that I'm trading on. If you are not familiar and you can't do enough research on the exchange that you're using, with all of these companies losing so much money this year, make sure you do research on the company, the platform, whether it's Webull, whether it's Robinhood, whether it's Ameritrade. I mean, don't think your company is too big to falter. If you can do the due diligence in one of these stocks, I would say focus on your brokerage account so you don't get wiped out. And that's not trying to spread fear or anything else. It's just make sure you do as much research where you have your money as where you're going to put your money. Okay, long intro, but I'm so damn happy to be back. Let's get straight into this. I mean, we've got some lines in here, so let me make this absolutely clear that these are not buy lines. This is a channel or zone as to where this has found support. I want you to trust your technical analysis and make sure you use this as only one element to do your own due diligence. So you see the numbers that I have in here. I put in 515, 451 has been in here for a very long time. If you go back and watch my videos, and for those of you that were following me on the Patreon, you know I warned you about this area right here the day before it happened. And now this area right here, it came back and revisited. Just trust your technicals. Now, of course, you're going to leave some money on the table. And down here, you can see at 442 or whatever, what have you, you might not capture the absolute bottom. But that's something that you want to trust if it goes below those levels and you've got time and this company doesn't look like it's going to crash and burn tomorrow, then, I mean, they aren't filing bankruptcy. They have a good cash position, and the demand looks good forward outlooking if they're investing their money appropriately. Now, you got to watch about shareholder dilution. You have to watch about raising capital, and you have to pay attention as to when that will need to happen, because, as these companies grow in this sector, they have to do those things. So let's get straight into it, and let's take a look at Twitter, and be sure to follow me on Twitter if you'd like to get these notifications as soon as they come out. I do post some things on Twitter. I'm not extremely active, but stocks Randy on here. every once in a while I'm getting a little bit more active on Twitter. But let's take a look at the Proterra retweet and just know that they have about, what do they got, about 16,000 followers. And they just recently have been very active, and they've been talking about school buses a lot. Matter of fact, if you go down here on their page, they retweeted a podcast that I'm going to cover for you in just a moment, and we're going to be talking about this Q3 2022 conference call from my perspective. But let's go through this podcast that was covered. I'm going to give you the summary of the takeaways that I got from the podcast. School buses. Can't hear enough about electrification of school buses in America. 480,000 school buses in America. A 35% portion of the emissions that come out of the United States coming from school buses if they were to completely be electrified. Now, I didn't realize this. I thought that we were supposed to be making buses more affordable. I do know that we have a high price tag on these buses, but I didn't realize that the cost of a diesel bus is actually less than the electric bus. That's something that we have to work on, and we should really be building the infrastructure. And I know we're all pulling on the same resources at the same time, so that's difficult, but I think we have to do more to make sure that that changes. We want this adoption to happen, and with the company of record levels of debt, let's make things more sustainable, more affordable. And if you've got less parts in a school bus at the end of a day and not a diesel engine, you would think that the cost of ownership would be lower. So something to work on there. And I think if the innovative company that figures that out first is definitely going to have an edge. Now let's go into the conference call, and we're going to do that in a moment. But let's talk about this appointment and the amount of energy that this new team has been spending on people. And I like this, that there's been a big focus on team building, and this is something that I've talked with you about in my last videos, is that Gareth is a team builder. I know that they're out there wearing their blue shoes or whatever color shoes they were, but this is a guy that wants to get the team together, and he understands the weaknesses of his team. They are putting money into their people because they understand that to scale this business, it is going to be something that they're going to need to educate this new team on. And being a public company and experiencing the type of growth that they're going to expect is really going to be important to make sure they make those investments. So really good to see that appointment of the HR on global operations and what else has to come. Now, we've got Proterra to participate in an upcoming investor conferences. Many of these have already happened. There's probably lots of information that will help you understand this company better if you still have faith in this company. Now, I was of little faith as they were from a return on your money standpoint, just because of what I had seen on the buses, and I was leading myself to believe that people weren't experiencing issues with the buses at all. But a lot of things came to light, and what I want you to understand is that from my perspective, just sitting behind the computer, looking at the information that's available to me, I understand that this company plans on stemming away from the buses and really focusing on the batteries and that infrastructure and the powertrains. Now, let's take a look, of course, at their guidance and 2022 revenue, because I did the math for you guys, and most of y'all have already done this. 300 million to 325 million. We really want to pay attention to leadership that understands guidance. They have a plan. People that ignore guidance, it's very difficult for me to take that company serious, because they don't put guidance on. There's just too many factors that they're not confident about. So I like and appreciate the fact that they have a model in place in this company, and they are able to establish and execute towards guidance. Even if they come up short, they don't make this, they're going to learn from it, but they have put a target, and it's quite a range. It's a $25 million range. And I understand 24% to 34%, and we're going to go on the low side. We're going to say 70.64 million is what they have to hit. And remember that number, 70.64 million, because we're going to take a look at what they've done these last few quarters. So they have been ramping up, and they are getting very close to getting Power One, I believe is what they call it, this new facility that should be, according to them, the largest battery facility in North America. Well, I'm just not sure why they kind of trailed off a little bit on their battery supply, but their megawatt hours just at one customer absolutely went through the roof. So this is very lumpy. And as far as their revenue and operating metrics is concerned, I mean, you could have 50 buses, you could have anywhere from 40 to 60 buses, you could have anywhere from, I would say, if we take an average here, maybe 250 to 350 on the battery side, power battery systems. And this obviously was a big project, and I expect this number to go much lower and more a stable number for this megawatt charging infrastructure, because what happens is the buses come first, and then it seems like the charging infrastructure comes later. So I would say anywhere from 2 to 5. I mean, it looks like the normal of what they would accomplish here. Now, it's been anywhere from 12 to 22, but this is just absolutely unpredictable as to what they accomplish there. Now, ultimately, gross margin is the number that this company has struggled to get positive again. And boy, we should have believed the old leadership when they said, look, this is tough to do, because they told us previously that being positive here, which they were able to accomplish for about 4 quarters in a row, was absolutely incredible. And incrementally, that was getting larger. And for the price of these buses, you would expect that they could find some money on the table. But here's the thing. They are starting to build out their capacity, and they're building a new facility, right? They are approaching growth, and it looks like they're doing investments, and they're doing all of these growth activities at the same time. I think this positions the company and investors specifically for a very unique time in the opportunity of the company, where you really want to pay attention to that price action, where they could quickly switch over to growth. I think that there's going to be plenty of opportunities to get in low here, and you could see that this gross margin percentage has just been all over the place. I mean, it kind of escalated to where it wasn't doing well. The leadership stepped in and started to really get their footing in, and I believe that they're starting to grow their leadership team to really understand the numbers and how they can play a part, and making sure that those get better over time. We definitely want to watch the cash total and short-term investments, but the ultimate cash level here that's getting smaller quarter over quarter, we definitely want to watch that, especially as cash flows are incrementally getting larger. And this is something that we really don't have a clear picture from the leadership team as to how long they can operate before they look to raise capital. So there are opportunities for this stock price to go a little bit lower. So if you're wanting to get in and out, I mean, that's the way that you can lock in profits. You've seen it on the chart here, and this has been pretty steady. I mean, $7 has really been the area where this has been getting rejected. And I would just look for opportunities to keep your cash on the side and come back in when those times are most opportunistic. Now, obviously, this is not investment advice, and everybody's got a very unique situation. Some people don't like to move their money around a lot, but we're not talking about having to make a decision immediately. Look how many days, this is in the day chart. Look how many days this has given you I'm in 2 days here, so that's a much shorter time frame, but you can really start digging your heels in right here at 5:15 and just see how many opportunities you've had in the past and here most recently to say, do I want to come back in this since the Fed pivoted, and take this as an opportunity now that I see them building this infrastructure out? Now, this brings me to probably the most important part of the video is, how do they feel about Q4, and is there a better opportunity coming up? Does this have further down to go? Breakthrough quarter, this was a big celebratory moment where we seen that this stock price went from the earnings here, it capsized up here to about 770, 772. So, I mean, the team was right in celebrating. Here on the powered side of the house, I mean, they're building up that infrastructure, and maybe they used some of their assets. And this is a bigger number than Q1. I think that's important to know, that some of these are just going to get delivered at different periods, and they're just going to fall inside the quarter or right outside of it, just based on shortage of supply materials. I mean, it's just not wiring harnesses that this company is missing out on. So a number of things could be pushing these in and out of a quarter. But look where they really made up for that number. I mean, it's just an absolutely massive number, but we're looking to shoot much lower this next quarter. So how does the stock respond when that happens? And I think you can play this on the short side if you remember that this is getting higher. This is something that you really watch. When this gets elevated up here above $7, you can expect that this is going to get knocked back down. Understanding, and you need to understand that in this market environment that you can play the short side on a stock too. You don't always have to wait, buy low, sell high. You can play short on resistance. This stock is not going to continue to go up, I mean, generally speaking, unless they get acquired by someone else. Like people have said in the past, man, would they just get acquired by Tesla already? So still challenging supply chain issues. After almost a year of working on the same issue, how much longer are we still going to be hearing about the wiring harness? I mean, there's been opportunities, and this is what I think ultimately with the supply chain challenges is the investment worth it to fix these issues if they can still maintain a steady? Is that the right place to put their money, is investments in these supply chain issues that will alleviate over time? Or do they make investments in battery technology? And I believe that's what they're doing. I believe they're taking their money and they're focusing on growing out their overall operations, which it really makes me wonder, I mean, if we go back to this sheet again with the powered battery, I mean, it really had a drop off. You would want to see this incrementally increase. And that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't get too distracted by this number. And I would say that this is an incremental increase for this year. And I would still say that, I mean, of Q4 of 2021, we have some very good incremental increases. I don't think you can expect every number to just go up, not with this type of business. So I would say to be patient with those numbers. If you're looking for every number quarter over quarter to go up, I think that's setting a really low or a difficult expectation. That's just not going to happen. And there's been a demand shift in this business. So they can see it on the horizon. And what you want to do is you want to get your money in before that demand shift actually takes place in the numbers. You want to take advantage of these low spots to just take a little bit, bite a little bit, get your cost average down, or even start a position. They really did a great job of breaking down exactly the cost. I mean, they've got tight cost controls around expedited freight. This is one of those very simple ones that could really get away from you. I think that that's very important to see cost control measures being talked about during the call. And one of our facilities has experienced a rent increase of over 56%. This is something that we've really got to pay attention to as investors, because they are expecting an over 250% increase. And they're looking into, and I'm glad that the analysts brought this up, they talked about their operational expenses and they broke that down in this call. But you really want to pay attention to these inflation costs and how they're either getting passed on to the customer or how they're impacting margin compression. And that's what we're seeing here, right? We're seeing that margin compression down here on the gross margin number. I mean, it was really taking effect. And a lot of those contracts that they signed that they're working on transitioning new terms over were signed in 2018. So they're trying to work through that. Another batch of around 800 million in awards. And this is really important to understand that there's a lot of money being put in to transforming the public infrastructure for electric school buses. So that was the huge topic and takeaway here. So with these programs starting to unfold, we believe we'd entered a new era of demand for commercial vehicle electrification. That's got to be the most important line that you get out of this whole call. Is I believe that Gareth is on point here. And this is the time that I told you that we would come back and visit. This was around Q3 when they were going to open up that new facility. You can believe lock, turnkey, everything. When that new facility opens and they give the press release, that will be the catalyst for the stock. I guarantee it. That'll be a great opportunity to buy it's not even a rumor, but to sell the news. I mean, obviously you don't want to get out of a position long term that you believe in. And I'm not telling you to believe in this, make sure you do your own due diligence, but at the right price. I mean, this has shown great stability. The leadership team has gotten their feet wet. I believe they're walking on their own now. And I'm seeing positive things moving forward. Now, of course, there's cost. They're moving into a cost era, and they have warranted that gross margins aren't going to be fixed in Q4. Q4 is probably not going to be the best quarter. And matter of fact, if they're saying that their guide is at the low end 70.64 on revenue, that is right here, I believe, around the 74 mark. They are not going to hit 96. They're not gearing towards that number. I believe it's going to be a much lower number, but they will have a very strong case where they have been building their inventory. Let's take a look at their inventory on the balance sheet. Here we have inventory that has been climbing, and they called this out. I appreciate that, they really made it very clear down here, and this really distracted me. Mike, he was like, hey, so you're gonna do 100 transit buses in the fourth quarter? 100. You're gonna double what you normally do without a second shift and your supply chain issues? I don't know where Mike's getting his model from. That was absolutely hilarious. Mike actually asked a few great questions after this, but you got to watch these guys. You got to know this stuff. If you're going to invest, I meant just really understand the company, because there's lots of people out there that will just read the headlines to you, but they're not going to. Gareth was beside himself. He's like, he was kind of like, I don't know where the hell you're getting that number, but we said 300 to 325, man. So, okay, let's talk about cash flow, because this is what we wanted to see broken down. And man, CFO hit this on point. She was ready. She is prepared. And I do appreciate how she laid this out. Everybody can see this and understand it, and it's not confusing. So let's break down this 115 million cash rate usage for the quarter. 115 million. 15 million CapEx for the Powered One factory. That's what it's called. That new factory that they're going to be opening up. 25 million in strategic investment. Now, I didn't talk much about this, but this strategic investment is talking about their new battery production. They are always the whole model behind this company is to be focused on batteries as a solution. That is a major part of their ramp up, and that is why we are seeing absolutely astronomical numbers here. And they're going to have a facility that is absolutely dedicated towards battery production. Very smart. I think they're going to make much better gross margins. I can't wait to see what happens once this Powered One factory, and think about that, Powered One. Powered One. Somebody thought about that name. I think it's really smart. So million tied to growth inventory. Okay, so 16 million. So if we go here and we actually look at our inventory cost and we subtract 16 million from this, this is just a number that they're putting in that bucket. I think we still, and 20 million accounts receivable due to late delivery. So they've got a lot of money tied up here in inventory, and they know it. And they're saying that was purposefully done. Maybe not all of it. I still think this company has room to really get their inventory straight. And I think because they are waiting on so many parts and they're reliant on so many parts, it's like over 1,000 parts to build a bus. They are constantly with safety stock and whatever their model is for this company to operate. So for example, say they have 1,000 parts, and on every 1,000 parts, they decide to keep 5 as a spare because of supply chain issues. As they start to see those supply chain issues let up, they won't need to strategically keep so much in inventory. And this is why we are seeing that they are like, look, we don't want to not miss plan. We want to consistently execute to the revenue number, but they're tying up strategically so much money in inventory. So that's what I believe is happening there. But they need to get more comfortable with those relationships and invest in the right aspects of growth. Because if you're going to grow, right, if you expect that demand to happen, those inventory numbers that you're seeing here should continue to grow. Also, that safety stock is going to be permanent. So they really need to work on what I believe is their weakness, these supply chain issues. I mean, I'm really disappointed to hear, and I don't want to end the video on this topic, but I don't want to hear about supply chain harness issues anymore. If this was a topic for Tesla and Elon Musk, I mean, oh my gosh, could you imagine if Tesla couldn't figure out a wiring harness issue and they struggled with that? I mean, nobody would go to sleep until it was fixed. I mean, Elon Musk would have everybody locked in a room, sitting at a table. They would have the president on. I mean, okay, Tesla wouldn't have the president on the phone, but what I'm saying, they've had the ear of the president in the past. So I'm telling you, they are not being creative enough. And this is just my opinion. This is coming from a guy sitting behind a computer that's only followed this company probably longer than any YouTuber out there. So let me know what you think. If you made it this far, in the comments below, what is happening with the supply chain issues, and then specifically these wiring harness? If you work for the company, I mean, let me know what is happening with this topic. That's all I got. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It is a pleasure to be back. I really enjoyed doing these Proterra videos. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up and get this one out to you. I'll see you in the next video.